Hello, everybody. Nick the Tiro here. When you first start learning how to program, it's not good enough just to hard code variable values in your project. Many times we learn to program by accepting input from what we call standard input. In the Linux world, standard input is the keyboard. In the Linux world, standard output is the screen. And we often use those terms, and sometimes I'll use those terms interchangeably in the programming language. If we do basic input into Java, we are basically taking things from the keyboard. And later on, when you learn more and more Java and you start getting into GUI interfaces, graphical user interfaces, maybe the input is coming from a window. Maybe it's coming from a field in a window. Maybe it's coming from a key click. Maybe it's you're hitting a button or something like that. But when we're first learning a programming language, most people will say the easiest place to start with input is with the keyboard input. And then the easiest place for output is just coming to a screen. And again, things will improve over time. Let me go up to my command prompt. And here I'm at my command prompt. And if you remember from previous videos, I'm going to use JShell. And basically what JShell allows me to do, it allows me to type Python code. I'm sorry, this is a Java video. It allows me to type Java code, and this JShell will basically interpret the Java code without having to worry about building it inside a file and then compiling the file, etc. So it's great for demonstration purposes. Now, let's talk about basic input. And the first thing we need to be aware of with Java and Python and a lot of these very prevalent languages out there, they don't provide everything for you, right? They're designed to be very streamlined, to be very efficient. So in the old days of programming languages, the programming languages would be huge, they'd be large, and because they try to shove everything in there. But with Python and Java, they basically only give you what you need to do your job. So a lot of times we have to use the import function for both Python and Java. So in this regard, the thing for basic input is not directly built into Java. It is, but it isn't, right? For argument's sake, it's not. We have to import the functionality of what is called the scanner class. By importing the functionality of the scanner class, let's say hypothetically we write a program that we don't scan the keyboard, then we wouldn't need it. But since we need it for our particular demonstration here, let's do it. So here I'll say import, and excuse me for 1 second. We'll say import java.util.scanner. And what this is going to do, first of all, these are the functionality of util and scanner. These are standard Java packages, right? These are just standard Java packages that aren't automatically installed. So we do an import there. This line is basically telling me, or telling the interpreter, go out to the Java util packages and pull the class scanner. And when we hit enter, okay, again, this is all designed to make these programming languages extremely efficient. We see the same thing with Python, where we go out and we pull libraries and things like that. Now, scanner is a class, and what we need to do for our program to use or pull from the keyboard, we have to create, or we have to instantiate, $20 word there, we have to create a scanner object, right? The class is basically define the object and the methods we can build inside the object, but we have to instantiate it to say, okay, we have this class, like we have this cookie cutter, and create us an object, create us a scanner object. So in this regard, I'm going to type scanner, very similar to what we saw with declaring variables. So scanner says we're going to build this object from the scanner class. And now we're going to give it a name. We're going to give it that objects a name. Now, traditionally, or a lot of people, you'll see SCNR. That name could be anything we want, but we want it to be descriptive. And you see it more and more in programs. So most people, when they're looking at Java programming and they see the I guess, lack of a better word, the object SCNR, they know that's some kind of standard. Could I call it Alice? Yeah. Could I call it Bob? Yeah. Those would be silly things, but this is the programmer defined name. Then we tell a job, we tell it new. Now what new does, it kind of says create this new NEW object. From where? Well, from the scanner class. And what we want is system.in. Now, not going into great details about, but system.in is basically input, scan the keyboard. System.in is basically the keyboard. So we can type stuff. So again, we're creating this object here, this SCNR. So initially we initialize it, or I'm sorry, we initialize it with scanner, create a SCNR. It's going to be a new instance, right? Instantiation. And then this is what we're going to create that object with or for. And once I hit that, you can see this nice long string here. I basically created an object called SCNR that will allow me to scan things from the keyboard. Now, let's say we talked in previous videos about the different types of primitive variables, right? And even the string. Let's say I want to read in from the keyboard an integer, right? So here I would say, first of all, I'd have to initialize or declare the integer. And for argument's sake, we'll call that area, right? So I would say int area. And sure enough, we created a integer primitive variable called area. And now I want to read it in from the keyboard. So here, very similar to the other assignments of values, we would say area is going to be equal to get something from the scanner, and then now stop here for a second. From what we've been talking about with OOP and all that other stuff, right? What is this thing here, this next int? That's a method inside the scanner class. And we're going to have several different methods. And what's a method? Method provides a function to that particular class. Remember, I'm going to beat this horse dead. A method does only one thing, but it does that one thing very well. So the next int, open and close parens, is a method inside the scanner class that gets the next integer. And that's all it does. And if I hit enter, try it again, I'll hit enter. It looks like it's not doing anything. Huh, that's interesting. No, it is doing something. It is waiting for me to type to the keyboard, right? So in this regard, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it an integer, 45, right? And you can see now that area has been populated with the integer 45. Let's do a double. Okay, so I'm going to clear my screen just to make it a little bit more readable. In this regard, I have to create or declare the variable first. I'm going to say double equals, we'll go with. Okay, and you can see that by default, it populated the double variable with 0.0. And I'm going to do exactly what you see me do before. I'm going to say width is equal to scanner, but we can't use next integer. So what are we going to use? Next double. And next double is just another method in the scanner class. We can just use, we'll do that in a second. We can use next, and that would just say grab the entire line and then put it into a string. And we'll do that in a second. And here it's waiting for me. Okay, so let's put a double here. We'll say 45.8. And it populated the variable width with 45.8. Let me clear the screen again. And let me create a variable. We'll call this variable first name, all right? So it's going to be a string type it correctly, it's going to be a string variable, and we're going to call it first name. And we got a string variable. Let's do a scan into first name. All right. First name is going to be equal to scanner. We've seen that. And now we have to find out, or we have to use a method to do that. So this one, we're just going to use next, right? There's a lot of nuances about next and next line and some other things. Here's where can't do every demonstration in the world. It's important for you as programmers, as app developers, to, if you have a question, to be able to find out how to search for particular information. Later on, I'll create some videos about that, but you can't sit there and memorize all the different functions, all the different methods, all the different classes. You basically then at a certain point have to go out and do some research. So I'll leave it as next. I'll hit enter. And it's sitting there and waiting for me. I'll put my first name in there. And you can see that we populated there. I don't think I need to do a demonstration inside Replit or Zybooks or something like that. Kind of shorten things up a little bit. But I would do the exact same things in those IDEs. Somewhere in the IDE, somewhere in the actual application file, usually at the very top, you see all these different import statements, and they're grabbing parts from all over Java. We grab the Java util scanner, and then we created a new object from the class scanner. You saw that previous couple minutes ago. And then we begin to use it. So, kind of shorten up the videos a little bit. Again, don't always have to demonstrate everything in Replit or Zybooks. That being said, a lot of material to kind of digest here, and I hope you really take the time to look at what I did and these lines. You often hear me say, cut and paste saves us a lot of time, but we can get very complacent, very lazy with cut and pasting. So if I'm always cutting that import, or I'm always cutting that scanner line, the instantiation line where I'm creating a new scanner, we don't think about what's really going on. So slow down a little bit sometimes, and when you start wanting to cut and paste the same line over and over again, ask yourself why. That being said, hey, let's go learn something.